Number 1, she pushed a soul against a wall of flesh, and the aperture grew. She became mother and was buried with her new title, buried by it. She squatted over the depression in the earth and bled. The doula had moments before reached into her and pulled out of her the child. As an immortal entity, part of something fierce and uncompromising, she had permitted the small, old, arthritic fingers of a god to rip and tear her. She had found the strength to allow her flesh to be broken, but her mortal body was not built for cosmic action, and she bled and bled and bled. This sized tissue episodically fell from her bloodied hole into the shallow throated receptacle. What the offering lacked in form, it compensated in volume. Torrents of blood, tissue, and water issued from her. As they fought to revive the fat infant, she grew pale. The light ebbed from her skin and the color from her eyes. Xhi, mother, sank oddly onto her knees under the weight of her crown. The earth drank its offering, grew rich and dark and swollen with her blood. Her hand sank into it, and her face met it with a thick slap. The lungs of her daughter forced itself open as Xhi's chest collapsed. The child was permitted to be and cried. The attendants held their ward. The doula pulled the naked and spent body of Xhi from her knees, and the wizened midwife took the child to her dead mother. The fist of 4 women, still surrounded by the chorus of 9, stayed silent. Of that 9, 3 joined the silence. 3 wept with the crying infant, and 3 wailed for the mother. The village knew then that Xhi had passed, that her child lived, and the joy and grief cancelled each other out in the tones and rhythm of the chorus, in the silence that engulfed the coven of women. 2. Some women did not make the journey. It was expected at every birth that at least one or both might be lost, but it was an honor to attempt it. The loss of Xhi was not expected. She was one of 12 from the same womb. Her mother and her mother's mother were one of many. They delivered their progeny with little event. Labor had started early, but the attendants were ready. In the chamber specially built for the delivery of infant tribespeople, the 9 witnesses stood at the periphery, painted head to toe in ash black. Their song was a careful orchestra of hums, throat breaths, and clucked tongues. They'd held a melody. Fists thumped on the large resonant chests. They kept time, kept pace with Xhi, moved in breath and beat with her. They mirrored the waves of contractions that came more frequently. They narrated and accompanied her as she struggled to push the child out. The midwife had heard their song and knew that something was wrong. She came with a knife and freshly washed hands. Labor had started early. It beat the light from the east by several stretches. They had been ready. The water was boiled, the vegetables that would accompany the afterbirth prepared. The chorus were assembled and waiting. The midwife informed of what was to come. In the cool early morning, elders had been woken or interrupted by the news of an imminent member. They gave their blessing, sent words of encouragement, gifts to accompany the mother in her journey. She was washed with them, her newly shaved head dressed by them. The infant was now in her limp arms. Her skin was cold, now scented with the metallic base note of blood and sweat. Her dress of indigo and gold hung from her slumped shoulders, its hem thick with ochre red earth. Even though labor had started early, Manu was prepared. Her child was fed, warm and watered, tied to her back. He slept the sleep of the innocent. It left Manu free to wash, anoint, and dress her cousin. She delighted in entering the birth chamber alongside her sister cousin, both to welcome their kith and kin. Now, Xhi's hands were in hers, They held their daughter together. The chorus wept with shuddering sighs. There were no words. They cried the shrill klaxon of the infant. There were no words. And in the death mask, in numb grief, in stoic acceptance, there were no words. The boy at Mari's back woke, baby Luca, silent with curiosity. The first of the tribespeople to look at the baby in the arms of her dead mother without grief. He was the first to know her name before the others would. Rain, because it did. 3. The child could not be named, could not be initiated without her mother's until her mother could participate. So once again, Xhi, the new mother, was split open, washed, dressed, and anointed. She was washed in the river. In repose, she looked her 19 years, her cheeks and chest full. Her naked body was red, the story of her short life sung. She was rubbed with palm oil. It gave her an ethereal cherry wood glow. They weaved herbs, flowers, bark, the sweet smelling into her, and placed offerings of fruit where her limbs met her body. Yams nestled with her cleaned liver, sweet potatoes in her bowels. In the morning of the 4th day, when the body was ready, bound in root and wrapped in reed linen, banana leaves were placed into the warm hearth of her grave. They poured coconut water after her, the rising steam sweet in the air. She was lifted out and wrapped and consumed on the evening of the 5th day. Her flesh broke the mourner's fast, the tribe taking into their corpus the body of their child so that she may live forever. Rain was given her name on the 6th day. Led by Luca's mother, her cheeks grew heavy. Rain, blessed thrice by the gift of the sky, the gift of a mother's milk, the blood spilt freely for the beloved. Water, milk, and blood. What better baptism could be offered?